We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an amazing episode of Keeping It Rio. I have an awesome guest here today, Sam Perez. Sam, welcome to Keeping It Rio. How are you this morning?
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Chuck. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a beautiful day here in San Antonio, Texas. I just got done working out and sitting down for an amazing conversation that I'm really looking forward to. So, doesn't
Yeah,
get much better than that, right?
absolutely.
So, Sam, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself. I saw you on Facebook a couple of days ago, and I was intrigued by your story. And I thought you'd be a perfect guest for my show. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of dig into the reason why you're really here to talk about what you've got coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a television news reporter in Columbia, South Carolina, and I recently graduated from the University of Georgia. And I love telling stories. And I actually grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, where my parents opened a restaurant that employs people in recovery from substance use disorder, which is drug and alcohol addiction. And so, being the journalist that I am, and how much I love telling stories, I met so many people with really, really interesting backgrounds and perspectives. And so I decided to take all of what I'd learned and what I'd heard and put it all together in a book. So I wrote the book Deviate from Denial, which comes out in September.
And that's awesome. That's a lot of stuff. I don't want to get too off subject. You just said you graduated from Georgia. I do
Yes.
have some stuff in the background here, and I do have to say OH because I'm an Ohio State Buckeye. So
All right. All
sorry
right.
about that. You guys got the national championship, so that's awesome. Um, this is really a unique story, and it's really cool because you say that this started off of your family who opened a restaurant that's basically just it hires and employs folks that are in recovery. What inspired your parents to do that? Was there something along the line in your family or someone that they knew that had an issue that they needed to resolve that way? Or what made them open up their hearts? Because I know that's got to be a pretty difficult scenario.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah. So my parents have been in the restaurant industry for their entire lives. They actually met in a restaurant. My dad was a server, my mom was a hostess, and the rest is history.
Nice.
And they never left. They've been in the restaurant industry for decades now. And one thing they noticed pretty immediately is that it's an industry that breeds partying, and that's a big part of the culture. There's late hours, and you don't have to work early in the mornings, and a lot of times there's alcohol involved if you serve alcohol at the restaurant. And so it's just always been a part of the culture, and it's one that they got caught up in. So when my dad was in his early 20s, he actually went through recovery for alcoholism. And my mom and him were married at the time. They're still married. I make that sound like they're not, but they got married young, and they were married. And so that was a really integral part of kind of their journey together. And it really was a big part of their early marriage. And so fast forward, a few decades, and they're still in the restaurant industry. They have their own restaurant, and they saw that partying culture was still a big part of the industry, but it was starting to shift as the opioid epidemic grew worse. And they started to see addiction take root in a way that they hadn't really experienced before. It was this whole other level. And they actually, over the course of a few years, lost 13 employees to drug and alcohol addiction. And so they saw this huge need. They reflected back on their experience when they were in their 20s with my dad going through recovery. And they just saw this huge problem and this huge, need. And so they decided to open a restaurant to try and, fix that. So they started DV8 Kitchen, which employs people in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction.
And that's incredible. We were just talking very briefly before we hit the record button on this about why I felt like this would be such a good fit. My industry is very similar. I'm actually an advocate for trying to help people get out of the service industries like that as well. And it's funny because it's not funny, but it's ironic, I guess.
Yeah.
The people that I hire in my organization, my branch manager here was in the service industry. He was a bartender for years and just got to the point where it was like, man, this is not the life that you want to live as you start to get older. It loses its luster, but you kind of get sucked in. And like you said, the activities that go along with it are always going to be there. So what
Absolutely.
I've done is I tried to pride myself by bringing people away from that as best I can. I haven't opened a restaurant or anything, but my roofing company does try to do that. So it's pretty interesting, the parallels that we see. And in my industry as well, there are so many organizations because it's unfortunate. I definitely don't want to make it like a political type thing, but a lot of people that are laborers don't have the ability to really take care of themselves properly. And people in my industry are out working in the field. They're hammering and doing stuff, and you get hurt. And sometimes the answer is, hey, take two of these and you can go back to work. I've seen a lot of people die from it as well in the industry, and that's why this was such a important thing for me to bring you on and talk, because I think we've got a similar
Yeah.
experience.
No,
So yeah,
absolutely. And I'm sorry to hear that, but I mean, yeah, that's absolutely a big part of, how this problem of the opioid epidemic really took root is, and, with DV8 being situated in Kentucky, I think it's unique because that's one of the places where it really began because of coal mining. And like you said, there are people out there that are working and they do get hurt and they, needed something to help manage that pain. And unfortunately, we just didn't realize, how addictive the drugs they were being prescribed were. So,
yeah, it's really a bad thing, and it's honorable to meet someone who's taken so much action to try and do something to rectify it. You said you're a journalist, you're a news reporter, which
yeah.
is cool. I get to do the news here every once in a while when they have hail or when they have stuff that's got to do with high energy bills and things. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, what led you to get into that? I know this isn't one of the questions that I had originally, but what led you to get into that? Because you're absolutely a natural on camera and your energy is like undeniable right here. It's awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It actually started way back in middle school. So I was on my school's speech and debate team, and there was a category called radio broadcasting, and I did it for the first time. And man, I loved it. I thought it was so fun, writing the script, working on a deadline, and then presenting to a panel of judges. And so I went home and I told my parents about it, and I was like, I love this. This is so fun. And they were, they told me, hey, this is a career path if you want to try and pursue it. And I also always loved English and reading and writing. So basically in high school, I explored that. I explored public speaking, and then I ended up touring UGA for the journalism program. And I never, ever thought I was going to go further south than I was. That was not even on my radar, but I toured UGA, fell in love with everything from, the program to the school and the people and the city it's in. And so 4 years later, I mean, I made the best choice imaginable, and I really loved the journalism program there. And I'm kind of one of those non-traditional college students in that I came in a journalism major and I left as one. I didn't ever switch. And now I'm in South Carolina. I'm working for a TV station, and it's so surreal, but it's absolutely, I mean, the coolest experience. And I really just love every part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're very busy, obviously. You've got a lot of stuff going on. The passion for what's going on with the opiates and such brings you to the point where you decide, I want to write a book. Like, what made you want to get to that point, or what got you to that point? Was it just seeing the impact that the restaurant was having, or was there something greater that just said, hey, you need to do this because you can reach a greater audience?
Yeah. So, funny enough, I actually found out about the program called New Degree Press, which is what I'm a part of. So, I was a sophomore in high school and I got a LinkedIn message from someone, and she said, hey, Sam, I'm connecting because I see you're a writer, a journalist, and I think this program would really appeal to you. Don't know if you've ever thought about writing a book. And I saw that. And at first, I was like, oh my goodness, this is spam. LinkedIn messages, I feel like so often aren't legitimate, but kind of looked at the program and I was like, this is kind of cool. But I was, in college, and I was like, there's no way I have time for this. I'm not going to do this. But I did respond to her and I was like, thanks for reaching out, maybe in the future. And I think she really planted that seed in me, because then a few months later, I was sent home back to live with my parents during COVID. And we had a lot of time together. We're spending time all cooped up, and they would tell me stories of work and, the people they met and just their experience. And so I started writing down those stories because I didn't want to forget them and I didn't want them to forget them. So then fast forward 2 years, I was a senior in college. This was back in August. And the same person reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, hey, you said maybe in the future, and I'm reaching back out again. And when I got that message, like I said, she planted that seed, and I had this compilation of stories. So I decided to just go for it, dive right in. And it's because, number one, writing a book is, a bucket list thing. I felt like it was cool. It was never something I really planned, I guess, on working toward. But I did think that sounded like a fun, journey to take or adventure to go on. And then couple that with this problem that we have on our hands of, substance use disorder. And I think that we all have the ability to help and work toward a solution in some way. Now, my parents are business people and restaurant owners, so they use that experience and they use the skills they have and helped out in that way. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm not a business person, but I am a journalist and I do share stories. And so that's how I felt like I could kind of contribute to a solution.
Yep. I think you're going to make a huge contribution. How large do you want this to get? What's your ultimate? Do you want to be a New York Times bestseller with this? Do you want to reach millions of people? What's your ultimate goal with the book?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I always, I guess, would say dream big. Yeah, I would love to have that happen. Being realistic, I don't know if it will, but I think just getting the message out there is important. I mean, that's why I wrote the book. I think it's important. And I think it sounds cliche and it sounds cheesy, but even if one person reads it and changes their perspective or maybe realizes what the problem is or understands the complexities a little bit better, that I'd be happy with that. I think that everyone needs to work together to come towards a solution because the problem is getting worse. It is not getting better and it is devastating people everywhere. And so seriously, if just, a few people read my book, if just one person finds the message and takes it to heart, that would be enough for me. But obviously I want it to be as successful as it can.
Yeah, me too. I want to look back one day and say I had a New York Times bestseller on my podcast. That'd be cool. I've had all kinds of unique people and I've never had a bestseller. I have had a few authors who have written life stories that are very similar to probably some of the ones in your book, honestly. A lot of people that I know in my industry have been through a lot of struggles, and it's extremely inspiring when they come back on the other side and can turn their life around and can become successful and then start contributing in ways that you would never think that would have been possible earlier. Um, it's so cool with the kitchen. Okay. Obviously your parents now, this makes sense to me. They've been in the restaurant industry. I thought it was unique that they just started a restaurant based on that. And it was kind of, off the beaten path. What's the ultimate goal for the restaurant? Are they looking to continue to grow? Or are they just kind of, trying to help people with day-to-day life and keep it simple? Or what's the plan for that?
Yeah, definitely. So when they opened the restaurant, the goal was to help serve this group of people that oftentimes gets overlooked. So a big part of that is because people that are in recovery, a lot of them have this past of incarceration. And so for a lot of people, they look unemployable. And my parents absolutely know that isn't the case. I mean, my dad's a prime example. He has had a successful career. He's had so many awesome opportunities despite his, his sobriety and his journey with recovery. And so he realized that, people that are in recovery or that have struggled with addiction are absolutely capable of excellence, but it's just not always recognized that that's the case. So they wanted to provide an opportunity for these people because another part of the problem is, we want people to get sober. We don't want them to be living in active addiction. But then what if they try and get sober and they have no opportunities to kind of, pull themselves out of that dark place? So my parents wanted to provide that. And the goal was never for DV8 to be, the final step. It was just supposed to be a stepping stone for people who, are going through this transition and trying to redirect their lives. Help them get to their next goal. So that was their thought. And they've just been expanding on that concept. So in August of this past year, my parents opened the second DV8 location. And I mean, the goal is just to keep doing that and to keep opening different restaurants to hire people and help more people. At the same time, it's to spread the message of, erasing the stigma of drug and alcohol addiction and just helping people in recovery. And so that's a big theme of, my book. That's kind of the core of it. But they have opened, so DV8 has a nonprofit, and then they've also started something called Soulful Enterprise, where they basically talk to business owners about how people in different industries, employers, can implement a similar model. So my parents' idea is, they went through the growing pains, they went through the trial and error, and they failed a lot when it came to creating this successful business with this successful employment model. And so they think it's something that could be implemented in some way at every business. And they don't want people to make the same mistakes they do. They want people to, try this out and really make it work and be able to impact lives. So they're hoping to share that idea, share that business model with people that are interested in, contributing to the solution.
That is so incredible. Oh, I don't know if you heard that. It just kind of echoed a little bit there. I don't know what that was, but I apologize. That's an amazing story, and it touches me so much because I was telling you about the people in my industry that I know, people that have been lost because of this. But somewhere for people that want to genuinely get better and want to improve their lives and want to be a contributing member of our society, there are not a lot of places that are willing to do that, that give those kind of chances. And I'm very proud of the fact that the roofing industry is very similar because it's hard work. You have to really, commit yourself if you want to do it. But over the course of time, I think the best people that I've ever met, some of my greatest friends in this world are recovering addicts, people that have been sober for, 1 year, 3, 5, 30 years, whatever it ends up being. And I think that they really appreciate the fact that whatever opportunity was given to them, and they take it very seriously. And I would venture to guess you probably see a lot of that where, the loyalty that the people that work there is probably so strong that they'll never leave regardless of, how great they do. And it's also huge encouragement because they don't want to relapse and don't want to disappoint those that have given them that opportunity, right?
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many testaments to that, and also testaments to the culture that DV8 has, which is a huge part of, I think, what makes it so successful is it is a culture that breeds accountability and it requires transparency. And so everyone who works there, is able to kind of keep each other accountable. But one thing that I think is really just shows exactly what you were talking about, kind of that mentality is, so when COVID happened, my parents had a different restaurant also in addition to DV8 that was not a second chance recovery model. It was just a normal restaurant. And COVID shut the world down and the business is closed for 2 months. And then when it came time to reopen them and bring a few people back, my parents were trying to bring people back from this other restaurant and from DV8. Now, at this other restaurant, the servers and the people in the kitchen and everyone, they were pretty happy to, stay at home and get unemployment, and they just were in no rush to get back to work. And I certainly understand that. I know it was a weird time and there were so many factors to consider. And so I get that. No judgment there. But it is interesting to see that on the flip side, every single employee that they asked to come back to DV8 literally jumped at the chance. Everyone wanted to get back to work, which is crazy. Who wants to work? But they did. They wanted to be back there. They wanted to, take that second chance, and they wanted to really work toward this life that they wanted, which I think is just, the coolest thing.
It really is. And I admire that because it keeps people motivated. That's my biggest concern too. And you just hit on it. When people are forced to leave that environment and then they're by themselves, that's when all the bad things happen. So it's amazing that they were, all so happy to come back, but it's also so beautiful because that just means that it's working and they want to be around those people because it's almost a second family. And for some of them, it's the first family that they've ever had. And I can't, that's just so awesome. What I want to do is I'm going to share this and I'm going to tag a lot of people in my industry who are also involved in recovery. We've got a lot of programs, a lot of people that really have raised a lot of money for our industry. And I want to share your book with the roofing industry and try to help as many people as we can. So your book is not out yet, but it's coming out pretty soon. What's the way that our fans are going to be able to order the book and, help spread your message, help this, help the cause and just do what's right?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I have a pre-order link, and I am donating a percentage of the proceeds or the profit I get from the book to DV8's Kitchen, DV8 Kitchen's foundation. So the nonprofit, and so that's making that impact. But I have a link that I'm happy to share with you. You can also find the link on my website at sam-perez.com. or on DV8Kitchen.com. And then in September is when my book comes out. And at that point, it'll be available wherever you buy books. Probably the easiest way to get it will be on Amazon.
Outstanding. I can't wait. I'm going to get a bunch of them for my friends because I think that's the right thing to do. And I've got a lot of friends who buy bulk quantities of books and hand them out because we feel like that's, that's just the right thing to do. We want to help people be better, and we want to make, awareness of things that others may not think of. So this is awesome, Sam. I appreciate you taking time. It's Saturday morning when we're doing this. Thank you for taking time to talk to the roofing guy on the podcast from the roofing company. I think it's going to be a pretty cool fit, and I think we're going to get some good attention for your book. I definitely would like to invite you back maybe sometime down the road after the book's been out a little bit to see how things have gone. And, I wish you the very best. This has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it tremendously. And thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Awesome, Chuck. Thank you so much for having me on, and I really do appreciate it. And I mean, yeah, I agree. This has been a really, really great conversation, and I appreciate just the interest you have in, learning about the mission and helping in the way that you can. So, thanks for having me on, and I would love to be back, after the book comes out.
Yes, ma'am. We'll make it happen. So, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and thank all of our fans for watching this episode, and we will see you guys on the next one.